Sheesh, I guess I was wrong. Like, dead wrong. I mean, going into UFC 314, I thought that we were about to witness the end of an era. I genuinely believed that Alexander Volkanovski, one of the greatest featherweights of all time, was finally about to pass the torch to the next generation. Coming off of two back-to-back KO losses, stepping into the cage at 36 years of age against a surging and dangerous finisher in Diego Lopez. I mean, all the signs pointed to disaster. But instead, what we saw wasn't the fall of a legend. It was the rebirth of one. Alexander the Great ain't just proved me wrong. He reminded the entire world exactly who he was. And this wasn't just a comeback. This was a legacy performance. And by the time that final bell rang, there was zero question in anyone's mind that Alexander the Great, Volkanovski, was still that guy. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share so you can help me reach 2,000 subscribers by May. I'll deeply appreciate you. And make sure you join the official UFC Discord, link in the description. Alright, so look, going into UFC 314, I real life genuinely believed that Alexander Volkanovski was on the decline. I mean, I had real doubts about whether or not he'd be able to hang with someone as dangerous and as explosive as Diego Lopez. And, to be honest, can you really blame me? I mean, look, Volk was coming off of two back-to-back brutal knockout losses. One to Islam Makhachev and the other to Ilia Topuria. He was 36 years of age going on 37 and was up against one of the hardest hitters in a division. A younger, hungrier, taller, maybe faster, more dynamic fighter with, serious momentum. So to me, it kind of looked like, the classic case of the aging legend getting overtaken by the young, hungry new lion. But what we got instead was one of the most spectacular vintage performances of Alexander Volkanovski's career so far. And look, Alexander the Great didn't just beat Diego Lopez. He looked better than him athletically, technically, and mentally. I mean, I was expecting to see a version of Volkanovski that, was fading, maybe a little slower, maybe a bit more hesitant. But what, or shall I say, who we saw in the cage was the exact opposite, because Volk not only came in sharp, crisp, and, calculated, but was also able to effectively control the range, dictate the pace, and, from round one, it was clear that this man was still one of the elite of the elites. Like, dog, I'm talking Volk started this fight fast, rocking Lopez in the first round and securing a takedown that quite literally set the entire tone of the fight early. I mean, his jab was absolutely masterful, and, it's maybe the best jab that we've seen in the entirety of the UFC, honestly. It completely disrupted Lopez's rhythm, kept him hesitant, and constantly put Volk one step ahead. I mean, dog, that jab alone was a game changer and has definitely earned his spot in a strongest attribute tier list in the not so distant future. What y'all think? Then in round two, Lopez landed the fattest right hand that dropped Alexander Volkanovski. And, for a minute there, it looked like the story was repeating itself. I really thought, here we go again. His chin's actually gone this time. But no, Volk instantly recovered, composed himself, and came back looking almost unfazed. And then in round three, he started to regain his momentum and then started picking Lopez apart with that jab again. And even when Lopez landed another big shot that sliced Volk open, in the fourth round, Volk never panicked. He kept doing the right things, kept making the right reads, and kept fighting his fight. Insanely smart. And then came round five, and Alexander Volkanovski just began to put on a clinic. I'm talking about the jab, the counter right hand, the footwork. They were all just clicking. He looked like the fighter he was in his prime. The Volkanovski that we knew before the Islam rematch, before the Ilya flatline. Not the Alexander Volkanovski that I predicted was heading to his doom. And that round was really the one that sealed the deal, really, and it wasn't even close. Alexander Volkanovski earned a clear 4-1 decision, and more importantly, he reminded not only me, but the entire world who he was and who he's always been. And look, y'all, I ain't never too big to say this again. I was completely wrong about Alexander the Great, y'all. Like, I truly underestimated just how much he had left in the tank. But at the end of the day, the concerns were real. I mean, the age, the knockouts, the opponent. But Volk just proved that elite skill, elite preparation, as well as elite mindset can really just overcome almost anything. But as for the boy, Diego Lopez, and look, no matter what y'all say, I still believe that he's still a future champion. In my eyes, at least. I mean, let's give the cat some credit. He had some really big moments in there, especially in rounds 2 and round 4. And let's not forget, he's only 30, y'all. I mean, he's still learning, he's still developing, and he's still improving every time we see him in the octagon. But you see, what surprised me the most was just how hesitant Diego Lopez looked early. I mean, I expected him to come out guns blazing, full of pressure and aggression, and, with that mentality of he's got nothing to lose. I mean, this is a title fight. But instead, he looked cautious and maybe even a little overwhelmed by Volk's speed as well as his timing. And by the time he started to up the ante and, pouring on his volume and started to let his hands go a little bit, it was already too late. Still though, this was a massive learning experience for Diego Lopez. And, the fact that he not only held his own, didn't get finished and, won at least one round on some of the scorecards just shows how high his ceiling is. And, in a couple years, this could have been a completely different fight. But UFC 314 was all about Alexander Volkanovski. And on top of that, he broke every curse imaginable. Like, I'm talking about the 35 and up curse, the filthy Drake curse, and even the UFC cover curse. You name it, Alexander the Great Volkanovski on April 12th of 2025 broke that curse. And not only that, but reclaimed his rightful spot on the 145-pound throne. And you know what? At this point, it's really hard arguing against him being the greatest featherweight of all time, right? I mean, honestly, it was really a debate between him and Aldo, but is it really a debate anymore? I mean, his resume is beyond insanely stacked. I'm talking 3 wins against Max Blessed, Brian Ortega, Jose Aldo, Chad Mini Mendez, Yair Rodriguez, and now Diego Lopez? And when you look at the bigger picture, I don't think it's crazy at all to say that Alexander the Great Volkanovski is top 3 all time across any division. Stamp that right now. Seriously. So yeah, I was wrong. But I'm happy I was wrong, because what we just witnessed was just absolute greatness. And Alexander the Great Volkanovski is still here, still evolving, and still making history. But that's all I've got to say for this video. Let me know in the comment section below. What were your guys' overall thoughts on UFC 314's main event between Diego Lopez versus Alexander the Great Volkanovski? And, what key takeaways do you have coming out of that fight? Do you think this new vintage Alexander the Great is here to stay, or was this a one-hitter quitter? Let me know in the comment section below. But that about wraps up the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.